Hello again. Chris Hani's widow, Dimpho Hani, says she's still angry about the investigation into the assassination of the former SACP leader. Hani's killer, Polish national Janusz Walus, was released on parole last year. The party is hosting the 30th commemoration of the event.
Chris gets assassinated. It was during apartheid days. And Comrade Mathews Phosa was deployed in that committee of investigators. A discovery was made that there was the second person in my neighbor's garden. What they found in that garden was an empty tin of Fanta and a cigarette butt, what we call stompy. Okay? These things were collected, but the apartheid government consciously decided not to follow up that. They made us focus on Walus, the assassin. Now, if you go to that house and you look at the garage door, the garage is standing like this. You can tell somebody shot from an angle because the bullet hole is at the end of the left side. I'm giving you this background so that you can understand my anger, and I'm not going to apologize.
Let's speak now to the former ANC Treasurer General Mathews Phosa, who was referred to in that bite by Dimpho Hani, as we reflect on the 30 years since the passing or assassination of Chris Hani. Thank you so much, sir, for your time this afternoon. I think maybe let's start with when Dimpho Hani started speaking. She referred to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and perhaps 30 years later in retrospect, how would you characterize that process? How's the reconciliation project going in South Africa? Has there been truth?
There's not been so much truth, and I think everybody knows it is common cause. A lot of murderers are still roaming around. They never appeared before the TRC, which is the sad thing which creates these post-TRC trials. It's because an investigation which are still going on. And I think I'm happy that there's more criminal investigation going on after the TRC. They could only do as much as they could, and may his soul rest in peace, Archbishop Tutu tried his best, but he couldn't cover all the ground. Apartheid was all over, and they committed too many crimes. I led the exhumations for the ANC of bodies. We were all over the country until we came to a point where we say, we can't finish the killing fields. There are just so many graves. Who killed those people? We don't know. That's why I'm saying the TRC could only make a contribution, but not the whole thing.
And then it's incumbent upon whom to then plug the gap or finish off the project, because you say apartheid was all over. You could not even finish the killing fields. No,
we couldn't. The government is pursuing these prosecutions, and which is good. It's not always in the media. I mean, last week I was being interviewed by police officers about the death of Temboise Mdawe, who was found hanging in a cell in Nelspruit, who was my client, you know. So it's going on. Yeah.
It's going on, but you have some sectors of the population, Dimpho Hani being one of them, and she also noted that she's not the only one. There are many families who are left with more questions than answers. Do you understand the frustration that is lingering in the air, that almost 30 years later, there's still a lot that is missing in terms of the full picture? Hence, we ask how the reconciliation project is going in South Africa.
Let me tell you, I was representing the alliance in the investigation of Chris Hani. So my evidence is direct evidence. It's not hearsay, it's not emotional, it's direct evidence. This Fanta team you're talking about, I told you about it. With stumpies of cigarettes. I have a gripe that that person has not been charged. I have a gripe that there's too many murderers walking around who have not been charged. And South Africans, all of them want to know, when will they be charged? When will they be found? There is an unfinished story which must be finished one day if there's a willing government to do so.
The person with the Fanta and the Stompy is known?
No. In the whole investigation in which we were involved for more than 3 months, we could never identify who it was. She's right to say they deliberately did not want to pursue that matter. We insisted we need to know. No one told us. Who knows who funded W. Lewis? Forget about Walus. So they were funded. Who was in control of them? There were three theories, and I'm going to shock you today. When we started investigating, we said, let's be brutal. It could either be the National Party which killed him, or the ANC, or some foreign forces. And we had to investigate, and by process of elimination say, it's not the ANC, it's not the National Party, it is these guys. But who hired them? We don't know. The Chris Hani case is just about one in the thousands. And many South Africans have got those questions we're talking about.
There's in fact a petition by the SACP, change.org, for this case to be reinvestigated. You mentioned a number of possibilities, right,
yes,
in terms of who funded
sure,
this entire project. A name of one Brajo Modise comes up. Who is he and what do we need to know about him?
I think I don't want to venture into that, but Joe Modise, who I know, was commander of Kodo Caesar. He was not involved in this killing of Chris Hani. I'm the first one to say it. He was not. Many names of ANC leaders were mentioned, and they were not involved. And I don't want to repeat those names, which is like we are promoting a lie.
Okay. Let's then take a look at the investigation that you led. You said you led it for more than 3 months or some 3
Yes.
months. So you found that there was somebody that was in the yard. So by the time Janusz Walus came, there was already somebody in the yard. Just maybe remind us in terms of what it is that you found in that investigation.
What we found was that Chris had gone to a hotel in Boksburg. We traced him to the hotel, back to his house. As he walks in this house, this Walus follows him and calls him by his name and starts shooting at him. But when we do a circumstantial investigation, we found that on the wall of his house, which is looking at the door, there's this Fanta team with stompies. Who was there? Who was smoking those cigarettes? Who planted him there? What is he waiting for? Who did he give signals that Chris is coming or not? So those are the questions which the important is quite justified. And I'm justified to feel that the investigation is incomplete. I don't have a problem with it being reopened.
Why is this can of Fanta and the Stompy such a critical piece of evidence? Chris was not a smoker. Was there somebody who was working in the garden that could perhaps it had been there? Was it planted? So do we know why this is so critical to the entire case? Because
someone who was part of Walus was doing the surveillance and monitoring, and he was standing there at the corner there, not next to the house, on the wall, and smoking, maybe very anxiously waiting for Chris to appear. That thing remains a question mark. She's right, absolutely.
What needs to happen? It's been 30 years later, and Mayor Dimpho says that she's wearing black today because she's still in mourning, and until the truth comes out, she will remain in mourning for life.
She's entitled to mourn her husband. In fact, it's very good she's mourning her husband. He's a man who respected all of us. He gave me military orders every day as a commander in the front. I respected him a lot. I worked with him in this country as a part of during the negotiations. We were in the same working group, me and Comrade Chris. He remained my leader. When he went to the Transkei and did not want to come because he was threatened, who did they send to go and fetch him? It was me. Mandela sent me to go and talk to him to come back. I did that. When he was accused of being involved in robberies of self-defense units, who organized the last press conference for him? It was me. I said, sit there alone, talk to the nation, and deny this false allegation, which was a smoke screen to kill him. But then they killed him a weekend after that.
Because there are also allegations, it's in literature, that apparently he was also aware about the assassination, not this one that fatefully took his life, and he had spoken out about it to the ANC, but nothing was done. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Are you aware of the assassination attempts on his life before the day he was killed?
No, I'm not aware.
Speaking of your relationship with him, how would you describe his politics?
Comrade Chris Hani defined himself in the struggle as a young man. He was a Christian. People don't even understand that. He wanted to ascend the pulpit as a young man. He joined the underground of the Communist Party. He joined the underground of the ANC like some of us did, but much later. Then he was forced to exile. He was influenced by his father and his uncle into the politics of the African National Congress and the Communist Party. And he grew in the ranks of the ANC. He was one of the youngest guys who infiltrated the Rhodesia at the time to fight the Smith government, got arrested, got detained in Lesotho, got released by the OAU at the time in Kaunda, and returned back. Chris never hesitated to intervene where he needed to intervene. The ANC was a bit relaxed in exile. Then the memorandum, the Chris Hani memorandum, was written by him and others. And they were in a bit of trouble for their views, which was unfortunate. But then it shows you the man. He was unafraid to say, Joe should not earn a salary in exile. You're too relaxed. The people at home want us to fight. What are we doing here in exile? He raised those difficult issues and paid the price for doing so. Sometimes in the ANC, you pay a price for telling the truth in terms of being too open, but which is unfortunate. But he did pay the price. He's not the only one. Someone was talking about, Hani was talking about people not tolerating different views, which is unfortunate because in a democracy, you have the duty to defend my view, which is different from yours. That's what democracy is. You must defend me, my right to differ from you. And that our young people must mature to that. When I differ from you, it's not because I'm your enemy. It's because I hold a different view. That's democracy.
In fact, she went on to say that the African National Congress runs the risk of being a dictatorship movement. Is that what you are witnessing, that intolerance to a different view, where you say that Chris Hani would get into trouble for holding that different view, is still characterized or is still plaguing the party today?
The factions of the ANC are promoting that intolerance. When someone is in one faction and the one faction is in power and they say something different, they charge them. They abuse the ANC constitution. That's the reality. You talk to a man who's always defending people who are in trouble with the organization until today. So that practice must stop. The ANC is a democratic movement. It must promote democracy and different views. We must have a festival of ideas in the ANC. Different views, which whether you like it or not, they must be there.
It's a big organization. It's
Yes.
over 100 years old,
Yes.
you know, and then you've got young organizations that are also watching, but you've also got young children who are watching, people who will be first-time voters, who are impatient, who are wanting a change, like Chris Hani was. I guess maybe that was his appeal with young people at the time. And so what makes this organization relevant all these years later?
The ANC will remain relevant. Let's not dream like babies. It will be there and after 2024, even if it is a dominant coalition. So let's not even go there and fool ourselves. That thesis won't hold. Chris Hani believed that if you want to organize the masses, you must start from the seams, from the poor, squatter camps, townships, villages, and organize those people. And he was right. The majority of our people live in the rural areas. More than 17 million South Africans live there. And they're very poor. Their infrastructure is almost non-existent. He says, start there with the poor. Look after them. That was his appeal. And the young people could talk to Chris Hani. He celebrated youth, like I do. I think the young people are the beautiful ones in our society, which we must celebrate. They may be outrageous, but we must encourage that outrageousness, because it enriches us. It makes us as adults to see our blind sides, if you want to hear what I'm saying. Yeah.
Speaking of blind sides, you said that he would give you instructions, right? And
Yes.
he would lead from the front.
Yes.
There is a conversation in some sectors or within some sectors of society that takes a look at the exiles and takes a look at the role of the exiles in South Africa. And oftentimes there's a little bit of friction from those who were left in South Africa to say, well, we were here, we were enjoying that abuse every single day, we fought. Yet when people who came back from exile, they are being more celebrated, being more taken care of. In retrospect, is that a blind side?
Let me tell you, I was an exile then. Then I became an exile. Because I was trained to use arms in the country before I left. And I was in trouble for my activities inside the country. And when I went outside, I was received well. And I continued. I became a commander of the army and waged war against apartheid. I didn't feel like someone is favoring me, and I don't need any favors until today. You understand? There are soldiers who fought. My law firm represents 2,500 of them. They were in exile and fought. Even they were favored. Why are they not getting their pensions? Why? Why are they not getting their pensions? Both those who were inside the country and outside made a contribution. And they didn't have to be ANC. The PAC people made contributions. AZAPO made contributions. And the churches made contributions. The unions made contributions. Let us acknowledge the role of all South African sectors in the struggle, not one movement. There was no super movement here.
There was no super movement.
Nothing.
You caught my attention when you said that we must put to bed the idea that the ANC will not be relevant even after the 2024 elections. Do you see the party holding a majority? If we go into a coalition agreement in this country, what does that look like for you?
Let me tell you, my view is, and I've said it publicly, I think the ANC is going to have difficulty in holding more than 50%. It will have difficulty. But to dream that the ANC won't be a dominant part of the government is really nothing but a dream. It will be there. It's not about to go away.
So you don't see the ANC going into a coalition government?
Let's not fool one another.
So you see the ANC going above 50% or maintaining that 50%?
Even if it goes under 50, it will still be a dominant player in the coalition. Yeah, let's not fool each other with romantic talks in the street. It will be there.
Okay, let's keep with that theme of romantic talks on the streets, because we came into this romantic, transition where it was the Rainbow Nation. Newzroom Hani was mentioning that, there was a promise that was made. You're going to get this for free, you're going to get this for free, but we didn't know, to use her words, that there's going to be a budget. So let's go back to the people and let's be honest about them in terms of what can be delivered and in terms of what cannot be delivered. When you take a look at almost 30 years later, somebody who was born in 1993, somebody who was born in 1994, how old are they now? Have they enjoyed the benefits of this transition? Have they enjoyed the benefits of this Rainbow Nation?
Let me tell you bluntly, you have a constitution, it's a very beautiful constitution, right? But people are betraying it. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not delivering houses, roads, what the schools they're supposed to build. They're putting money in their pocket, and that's when the issue of corruption emerges. That's when the frustration starts in the community. And the community is entitled to say, we will not vote for you because you're corrupt. They're entitled to say so. We can't blame them. Why should I deliberately vote for someone who's corrupt? They won't vote for those who are corrupt. So the ANC must be very careful. There is no kid club treatment in 2024. It's going to be judged very harshly by the voters.
Newzroom Hani was also speaking. She was very outright in her condemnation of the country's courts, speaking of, abuse and re-victimizing the victims, if you will. She also spoke at length about the Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, not flattering, if you will. What is your take on the judiciary and victims of apartheid?
Well, victims of apartheid need justice. There's no middle road about that. And we have talked about that in terms of where murders were committed and all those things. And we also say the victims of apartheid need housing, they need schools, they need roads. Those are the victims of apartheid, but they're excluded. They need jobs. But in terms of what she's saying about the judiciary, in a democracy, I said, we are all entitled to our views. You're entitled, you know what I'm saying? You're entitled even to make a stupid view. It's democracy. So Comrade Hani is the important entitled to have views on the judiciary. My views are as follows. There's separation of power. The legislature, parliament, the judiciary, and the executive. And they all must not crisscross the lines. They must respect each other's spaces and support one another. But at the end of the day, judiciary rules all over us.
Before we let you go, you have a treat for South Africans, because you're going to be releasing something very soon that will forever be marked on history's Hall of Fame. I think maybe before we let you go, do you remember when you joined the African National Congress and why?
I don't remember the date, but it was during the time when black consciousness was dominating, and the ANC began to recruit in black consciousness. And many people like myself, the president, and others were recruited out of the black consciousness into the United Democratic Front, and therefore the Charter Movement, and therefore the ANC were recruited. The ANC was very aggressive. Chris Hani, give him credit, he led the onslaught in recruiting black consciousness leaders like Tenjo Mtinto. He recruited them from BCM. He went into all to recruit the homeland leaders like Tolemisa, like Enoch Mabuza, and as part of that effort, we were working with him. So that's where it was. I'm writing a book which will come out this year. And the reason why I'm writing a book is exactly what the questions you're asking. The youth, which is now adult, does not know what happened in the past. And we who were there must record that. The book is more than 400 pages, and it's really a tribute to the youth, So they get the information. There's too much historical gaps in what we're telling them.
Before we let you go again, just one last question, I promise this time. You mentioned the appeal of black consciousness. In 2023, what does that look like, black consciousness?
Well, let me give credit to black consciousness. It produced people like me, like the president, like many other people. It produced many leaders in this country. Steve Biko and his generation, Steph Cooper, people like Bani Pichan and others who were leading at that time, Nengonkulu, they played a critical role when there was silence on the political field and produced new leaders, a momentum of revolution. Well, the ANC had to take it further, the PAC had to take it further, AZAP had to take it further, which they did. And I don't think we can blame them for what they did. They tried their best. Today, there's a new constitution. We can't deny that. When you deny that, you are delegitimizing democracy. You cannot delegitimize it. You can say what are the weaknesses and criticize as much as you want and get them done, fixed.
Mr. Phosa, sir,
thank you
very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.